Hey, I'm Daniel Berger, and this is Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Welcome to the podcast where Metro New York real estate meets great stories and a douse of humor. Forget the dry sales talk. Here we dive into the fun and unexpected moments of real estate. Join me each week as we explore Westchester, Long Island, the Bronx, and more. You'll hear about the people, the places, and the crazy situations that make this industry so interesting. Thanks to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, we're ready to share the lighter side of real estate. Whether you're a pro, a buyer, or just curious, we've got something for everyone. Ready for today's adventure? Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. Today, I'm excited to have Alex Young. He is a top producing real estate agent in the Green Bay and Tennessee area. He's with the Bowtie Group. And so the first question I have right off the bat is, where's the Bowtie?
Man, where's the bow tie? When it's closing day, the bow tie takes place. However, I do want to point out one thing. There are two Green Bays. There's Green Bay, Tennessee and Green Bay, Wisconsin. I support the cheese, and up in Dairyland in Northeast Wisconsin is where I'm at. So Tennessee, though beautiful, unfortunately is not home for me.
Very good. Okay, so there we go. We do the cheeseheads. New York football teams just have been traumatized, I think, by the Green Bay Packers for decades. So
Yeah, we have that effect, but we welcome everybody. So if you want to start wearing some green and gold, you're more than welcome here.
that's great. So it's actually where I think you're about 8 years into real estate, which is about the same as mine. And you come from a great background. You're an engineer by trade. Tell me a little bit about that background as at being in engineering, and then how you actually pivoted into real estate.
Yeah, so my background prior to this, I was in leadership and sales at a telecommunications company. So the engineering, unfortunately, is not on my background as well. There's another Alex Young out there who is in Tennessee. So lines crossed, doesn't matter. I'm so
All
much
right.
cooler. I'm not. I'm sure he's a wonderful person. However, prior to this, I did sales and leadership at a telecommunications company. So working the retail grind, and it just got to the point where I was like, you know what, this just isn't for me anymore. I'd rather go through and I need something different after working there for 5 years. And my wife knew somebody who was in real estate and we got together for dinner and I picked their brain and they went, yeah, I think you'd be a good fit. So I went in, took a week's vacation on after having worked the last 187 days straight and it was like, okay, let's do this. Sunday evening, bought the licensing course here in the state of Wisconsin, took it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, scheduled the exam for Friday down in Milwaukee, about an hour and a half south. Drove down, took the exam, passed it, and went in that following Sunday and put in my 2 week notice. So I went from a 5 year career prior to this to jumping ship in 2 weeks and thought this is easy peasy because when I started off the first 2 weeks, I was able to serve four clients and I was like, oh, this is like HGTV. You just show up, open the door, and things happen. From that point forward, I helped two other people the next 6 months. So it was a stark contrast to those first 2 weeks thinking that things were easy, only to find out that is anything but the truth.
So I think part of it, well, first off, I just wanted to give you a little shout out that in 2022 to 2020 to 2022, you were named like a top real estate agent. I think it was in Northeast Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So clearly, while it not being easy, so far you've shown that you're good at it, right? So easy and being good are different things. You mean easy as in you're very busy and all that type of stuff, right? So
Yeah, I'm what's I'm very fortunate to still be here after 8 years, and I would like to think I'm at least socially acceptable, and am fortunate enough to not have made any mistakes big enough to completely take me out of the game. However, it's not without trials and tribulations. I've still You're not going to be able to see it on camera or on audio, but I've got when I first started off that I mentioned the first six, almost 7 months of my career served six clients. That's while I was on a team on top of that. So I went from a full-time job making good money, full benefits to all of a sudden barely scraping by. My wife had to pick up a second job. We went through and had to pinch pennies everywhere we could. I've got a scar on my right arm from where I had to donate, or not had to, but I did donate plasma twice a week for a number of months just to be sure I had enough money to have on the prepaid Visa that they give you so that I could get gas in my car to then go out and serve clients. So it's one of those where I've been in the lowest of the low, and I'm very fortunate to have just been a combination of both grateful and lucky and fortunate and stubborn-headed to get myself here 8 years later.
So I think that's like a testament to you and your dedication, right? So I do feel that having to do whatever you have to be able to stay afloat because you saw the dream that you think you would be good at it and people
Yeah.
liked it. So I think that burning desire and that drive is clearly part of your secret sauce and what separates you from others, where yeah, it's not just $1 million listing and HDTV and all that, where every time you go to an open house, you're gonna have sushi and they're trapped clown acts and things like that. It's actually hard work. And
Yeah.
but you wanted it. And I think in a lot of things that's what's interesting. So for me, I was in for over 20 years in sales and marketing, from selling insecticides and herbicides in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to coffee, to bottled water, to solar. And then my solar company, it was a big solar company, they went bankrupt. So it was, I'm 48 years old. See, the good news is you have age, you're younger and you have better looks. So those are all things that
But no bow tie, so we're in the same boat.
my son's a bow tie guy. I have actually my high school picture, I class picture is actually with bow tie.
Classy.
But I try to wear shorts whenever possible now. But your desire to stick with it and your perseverance is probably something also that your clients see. So to me, part of why it was slow was more, it was not a factor of your ability, it was to be a good agent. It was probably more of the factor of how do you find clients,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
absolutely. This is
lead,
not, they teach you to get into the business, and the licensing exams probably similar by you as well, is they teach you how to not get sued. They don't
right.
teach you how to build a business, grow a business, or be successful in a business.
That's what's interesting about real estate. There's no degree really needed. You just had to do exactly what you did on a weekend, right? You spend some time, and that's a little bit because the barrier to entry is so low. It only takes money. That doesn't mean you're getting necessarily a skilled person.
Yeah.
So it's slightly dangerous, right, for buyers and sellers out there that you can basically Google names and they pop up, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the people are any good. And what you and I had 8 years ago was the same. We had a desire to be a real estate agent with no business. And so for me, I built my business. Actually, Zillow is my friend. I spent money on Zillow and the phone would ring and I would then pick up the phone and I would do. We have in New York, there are more of these cooperative things. So they're basically it's one step up from a rental, but it's not a condo or a house, and
Yeah,
they're very difficult. They're difficult and time consuming, and not that the commission off of them is low. But you know what? You take anything you can have. I did the smallest apartment I did was I think it was a 251 square foot apartment for $42,000. And think about it, I'm in Westchester County, New York. So that's low. But you know what? You don't look at it as money. You look at it as a person and you try to
nope.
help that person. That person became such a strong proponent of mine on
Hmm.
social media. She might have been in 251 square feet or 451 square feet. I can't remember, but it was like she lived in a mansion of social media for me. Every single posting she said, he's the best. Oh my God, good
Yep.
luck. And then it turned out that she ended up, I think she referred one or two people to me, and then she had to sell at one point and moved somewhere else. So never look at people for the size of their transaction, but about
Absolutely.
helping people.
Yeah, it's one of those where one of the things early on that I learned is it's always people before profit. It's the moment you start, and we've all been there elsewhere outside of real estate where you've gone somewhere and you can tell someone's just trying to sell you for the sake of lining their pocketbook. And it feels dirty, it feels grimy, it feels slimy. It is not an enjoyable experience. And when it comes to real estate, there's already enough anxiety and emotion that comes from buying a home or selling a home or investing or any aspect of real estate. The last thing that I've ever wanted somebody to feel is either uncomfortable or that I'm trying to sell them something. In fact, when I meet with clients, I specifically tell them, I'm not paying your bills. I'm not living with you. I don't care if you stay exactly where you are. The hard part is that comes as a surprise because they expect it to be like what on TV of showing up and being sold on the property. Of, here's why to buy it. Here's why to buy it. And the moment you make somebody feel like a transaction or you make somebody feel like a number, you've lost them forever. So for me, I've always been taught of you got to treat them like a person. You always need to put the person before the profit.
And also, desperation is a killer in the sales business, right?
Yeah.
Again, me being older, probably being more of my second or third career, and also having, it was certainly easier not having to worry about where my next check was coming from because it just the place of where I was in my life, my wife worked or whatever, starting to become an empty nester. Not, I wasn't an empty nester. We were down our path. So it's like it's never about trying to keep a deal together. If anything, it would be about I cancel deals because I feel like if it's not going to work out for my
Yeah.
client and it's good for them, when they see that I'm pushing and I'm not trying to keep anything together at all, if they don't want it, let's move on. That, just like you said, once you lose someone, you're done.
They want someone in their corner, and that's who you've been.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. Part of my idea of the podcast, and I actually just wrote a book and I published the book like a month ago called The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. It's
Yeah.
basically knowing that we all have stories to tell. And so I wanted to write some of the stories about what's going on. One of my clients, I showed them 205 houses, 205 houses over 13 months because I wasn't pushing them. And that's just how long it takes. I have ones that I've shown them zero houses because I did it on FaceTime and they were across the country. So I've gone from zero showings with me just in the house to putting in an offer. I've done that a couple of times. I've done one or two, but you know what? 205 is my record. And it's that's chapter 10 in my book because my here's a copy
It's
of
not
my
chapter 205.
no, no, because that would be boring, right? And so I didn't want to have a boring book. It's a quick read and it's fun, but it was funny because I had a customer appreciation event, like a book event. I rolled out the book and it was a book signing, and I had people like going around in the backyard. We had it catered, and we had a bartender. And when you invite 150 people to your backyard, you better have food and you better have alcohol,
Yep.
because
We're
that the
in
book that
Wisconsin. I know exactly what you need.
and that made the book a little bit easier. But people were going around. My clients were like, "Oh, I'm chapter 10. I'm chapter 4. Oh, I'm 3." So it was it was a lot of fun. But I think it's so important, obviously, to make sure that you have your client. That our job is to have our clients' interests at heart. And my view has always been work for the recommendation and the review, because if you work for a good review, then you're going to close transactions and that's where the money is going to come.
Yeah,
And they'll refer you to other people down the road. So,
absolutely. It's always, if you take it as it's been taught, if you take care of the business, if you take care of the work, will take care of you.
yeah, that's obviously markets are cyclical, and they're up and down. And it's in the beginning, it's harder because you don't have a base. You don't really, your sphere might be a little less. You've done over 300 transactions. I've probably done 450 to 500 or something like that. But we still have now in all of those transactions clients that we can always reach out to and through newsletters and social
Yeah,
media and all that, saying, "Oh, this is what we're doing," or if you're interested, or if you're moving, or so it's always staying engaged with the clients, and they know that I'm here. So I'm not pushing you to do anything. But when you or your friends and family need something to help them with in real estate, Alex, you're there and I'm here. So that's what we're trying to get out there, and we're going to protect the interests of our clients.
absolutely. They want an advisor and they want an advocate.
So a lot of people, I'm like anti everyone, but like a lot of people, and you're from at least from an engineering, even though it's a sales part of engineering, but working in that field, people are more like have systems in place. What are some of the systems that you have to work through the process in your day-to-day business plan?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very fortunate. So there's two parts to that. The first part is I'm very fortunate to work with my spouse. I work with my wife. We've been working together for a year, and she's the director of operations. Her bread and butter And her skill set comes from systems and processes and creating an incredible experience. So she has taken what I've built in the first 7 years and has just been able to blow it up over these past 12 months into something that's truly spectacular. So I'm very fortunate to have her alongside me. On my side of things, it normally comes to three things. One is what I call bookending the day. So bookending is I need to be able to control my morning right when I wake up, and I need to control right before I go to bed, and everything else can be trash in between. But I at least know that I had a day that I had some semblance of control. And what I mean by that is too often agents and people in the industry and people outside of the industry, friends, family, will go through and they will wake up and they will let the day happen to them versus having some sort of plan of, I'm going to do this first thing in the morning because I wanted to, because I decided to, and here's what it's going to be. In my situation, it's I'm at the gym first thing in the morning just to get my body moving because I need the release of just clarity for the day, get home, take care of the dogs, have breakfast, see my wife, and just have the first few hours of the day. I know that I have control over, and that sets me up in the right mindset, both mentally and then the right physical set to go through and tackle whatever the day has to throw at me. And then I control the last part of the day because I think that what you focus on and what you think about while you're sleeping does play an impact in how you show up for yourself and how you show up for your clients and your friends and your family. So being able to go through and not be consumed with social media or the news or anything that I feel as though can be putting garbage in, because in my mindset, garbage in is garbage out. If I'm taking in things that are making me feel bad or worse, how can I expect to build something that's going to drive positivity and success when the inputs aren't there for it? So making sure I control that second part of the day. The second thing I do, I live and die by my calendar. It is difficult for some people to go through and operate with, but whether I'm spending time with a client, spending time on a podcast like yours, having date night with my wife, or getting together with friends, everything goes into the calendar. And that's hard when you're having a conversation with a spouse. Before my wife and I worked together, and when I first started in real estate, we'd schedule date nights and I'd be like, I got to put it in the calendar. And it's difficult because if you're not in the industry, you see somebody saying, "Oh, you want to get together? Let me check my calendar first." And you think, am I not important enough? Am I not a priority to you? When in reality, what the way that I viewed it and the way that I've shared it with everybody that's in my life is that when I put it in my calendar, that is because you are the most important thing during that time and nothing else takes precedent. And once it was like, oh, okay, so having the time set in the calendar means that Alex isn't taking phone calls or answering text messages or emails or jumping off to go do a showing or anything else. My wife and I know that when date night is scheduled on the calendar, date night is what's going to happen. I'm able to be where my feet are. And that is incredibly important to just have longevity in this industry because it's very easy to get rid of boundaries if you don't have control over your time and over your calendar. And the third part that I think is an important process when it comes to this business is always going through and aligning yourself with the people that put wind in your sails and not the anchor off your bow. And what I mean by that is there's enough podcasts that drive success and learning and growth, and all of that is good. However, you want to be around the people that are going to challenge you to take that information and implement it. So having the right conversations and the right groups to be around, I'm not here to just look at classes or podcasts as just education because it was taught to me very early on. Education without implementation is just entertainment. So taking that time and actually taking something that I've learned and finding a way to immediately implement it is that final process. So it's not overly complicated. Control your morning, control your night, control your calendar and where your boundaries are, and find a way to take action in your everyday. And the whole business, whether you're in real estate or not, is a lot easier.
Yeah, so I'd like to be part of why I created my brokerage is I wanted to be able to do the things that I wanted to do and the process that I did without having to listen to others. So certainly the what I listen to are the rules and regulations, right?
Yeah,
That's the guiding principle
a
of how we
non-negotiable.
non-negotiable. But everything else, like me wearing a tie or not a tie or shorts and flip flops or whatever, that's different. So we're, again, I just said you're better looking and younger, but we both have the beard and the hair. But so I've ruled my life for a long time by calendars as well, where if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
So I'll put it, everything is in the podcast. We talked about the dogs. I actually have I have two dogs, and one of my dogs is crippled. So my dog had needed spinal surgery and is in a wheelchair. So I have a physical therapist that comes like every day, and we go for walks. So if I do my best to be around when that's going to happen. And then there's also maybe pool time for the dog on the weekends. I'm an empty nester, so it's a little bit easier. Whether it's a dinner or a golf event, that's how I get out with my friends,
Mhm.
close friends, is to play golf. I do block things, right? So you block the times. And the funny thing is, you talk about date night. Sometimes my wife, and I'm going to be married next month, 30 years. And my wife is, don't you have something that's going to prevent us from doing date night tomorrow? Because maybe I want to break, whatever. But we both have jobs where like you sometimes do have to be taken away or that you're doing it during dinner to catch up with stuff. But the bottom line is everyone has to do what works best for themselves, right? So if that's what works for you and your wife, then that's what you do. And that's the way that you're going to keep yourself motivated and sane to do that. I like, on the other hand, so it's funny because when I golf with people, and I'm on the phone. I'm not really on the phone when I'm golfing, but I'm texting. I'm on the phone texting or emailing and trying to move things ahead. I'm also the broker, right? So I have people that report that they don't report to me, but I'm responsible for them. And so they're asking me questions to make sure that they're following the rules and guidelines, or they want coaching tips. So that happens a lot. And I don't want to just be like, this is my time. I'm blocking the 4 hours. So I'll do my best to try to help them. Maybe I'll say, listen, at 7 o'clock tonight, that's a perfect time and we can schedule something. So I'll do that as I'm golfing. Yet when I come home, my wife's like, you've been golfing all day. I'm like, except that I've negotiated two deals where I saved this one. So it's everything that you've had to do in real estate. So I'm like, not exactly, but that's what works for me, is that I do everything all at the same time.
Yeah,
You
it's got to
know,
be an ebb and flow.
and it has to be something that works for you. So it's funny when you do talk about the bookends, I'll agree. My bookend basically starts every day with a dog that's in my bed, not the cripple and the puppy, who's okay. It's time to bring me downstairs and taking me and my sister outside and feed
Yep.
us. So
Yep.
that happens quite early. And then that kind of gets me into my day of catching up. And then I stay up pretty late. So I stay up pretty late, but that's my bookend, is staying up late to finish off the things so that I can get that sleep, knowing that I don't have an email or something hanging over me. So I spend a lot of time to do that. But again, that's how I like to operate. And I think that's the thing. So you have to put in place things that that invigorate yourself and help
Correct.
you run the business the way that you wanted to run the business. So
100%. Success looks different for every person. For
exactly.
some people that are happy with, hey, I close one deal a month, and that creates the lifestyle and by design that I'm looking for. Awesome. If somebody needs 10 deals and 10 clients to serve during that same month to accomplish that goal in order to feel successful, awesome. There's no one way to determine or define that success because it means so many different things to so many different people.
So that brings me a question. How do you do, or do you do budgeting? So if you're going to sit down, think about what 2026 is going to look like, what do you do for that?
So a lot of it goes through and actually keeping records and having a profit and loss statement to where I can go through and see the money that's coming in as well as the money that's being spent and going out, not just in the business side of things, but in our personal life as well. I'm very fortunate that my wife and I have very clear and open communication when it comes to budget, only because we've been to the lowest of the low places. When we first started off in real estate, we had over the next 5 years paid off almost a little over $250,000 worth of consumer debt between credit cards, student loans, cars, all of that kind of stuff. The only way we were able to accomplish that is because we were very vulnerable and transparent in where we were, but very open to having the conversation about money in general. So budgeting has been around for the two of us for quite a while because it's helped us so much. But being able to look at where our lifestyle is and what the life is that we want to do, not just what does it take to survive, but what does it take to actually thrive? What does it look like to get together with friends or to go on a trip or to donate to a charity or to host an event? What does it all look like and what has it looked like? And is that matching where we want our future to be? So, in order for us to know where we're going, we have to look at where we've been. Because if you expect to get someplace new by doing what you've always done, it's not going to happen. You're just going to get to the exact same spot. So we need to see if we where our goal is and then reverse engineer based on that number what we need to do in our business in order to create that life by design. So we have very clear budgets about what our monthly expenses are, very clear budgets about where our business expenses are. Combine those both together, add sprinkle some taxes on, go through and budget it out, and then that's what the year is ahead.
How are you? So for healthcare, I now that you both work together, is healthcare in Wisconsin, is that an easier thing to get, or do you have it? How do you
We
do
we
that?
have some amazing healthcare systems, but just like healthcare in most areas of the United States, it's still a pain in the backside. We have private insurance that we have to go through and pay into fund. The difference is that is and not the difference. The thing to note is that is still a line item on the budget. Everything is on the budget. Utilities, mortgage, eating out, groceries, fund money, whatever it's got to be, gas money, everything's in the budget. It's just being very clear and linear as to where those costs lie because not every personal expense is a business expense and not every business expense is a personal one.
What I've noticed is that there a fair amount of agents where this is an industry where not everyone has healthcare. They just wing it and hope they don't get sick, which is
Yeah.
really not the way to go. It's
Yeah.
like buying a house without mortgage insurance, although you're not allowed to, but or buying a car right off a lot and yeah, I'm not going to have insurance because what could go wrong, or at
Yep.
least collision. And then also a lot of agents don't save for retirement. Do you have line items about
We do.
retirement as well?
We do. In our line items, our investments between Roth IRAs in disability insurance and other things, because like you said, things don't go wrong until they do.
And then they're really wrong.
And then they're really wrong. So to make plans and to budget, thinking always the best of things will set you up. You are one failure away from complete ruin. So we try to plan out all of those pieces. So when it comes to investments, yes, that is a line item that we have into that budget.
I like that you said disability insurance because that is probably the least amount of people have that. And actually, the chances of becoming disabled are so much higher than the chances of dying. Obviously, we all die, but before 65, I think it's four times as much or something. Getting disabled is much more prevalent than the odds of you dying.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, though, is that in our job, being disabled as a realtor is probably a lot higher because it's not like you just have, let's say, I'm trying to think of, there's some jobs that are obviously worse. How about a city worker who works in the tax office, right? So it's a desk job in an office. You can be slightly disabled and still do your job. In our
Yeah.
world, slightly disabled might be that you can't drive, you can't, and that's how right, you can't
Mhm.
do this, that. I just think that there's in real estate there it would be a lot easier to get disabled. You can't walk, where if you were able to use a wheelchair, you could get into an office, right? You wouldn't be able to potentially do our job if you can't walk upstairs, right? If you
Yeah.
couldn't, it would be a lot more it would be a lot more complicated. So I think that's like a great planning to know that's important and that you need that.
Correct. And it's one of those where, again, it's if you plan for the worst and build your plan around that, everything above it is just gravy. And
Yeah,
that's when things start to get fun.
but you need to sacrifice in order to do that, right? Because you can't go on your dream trip, or maybe not all the time, right? You can't maybe have that second or third glass of $15 wine at dinner because you have to take sacrifices, right? Because you need to know, and it's similar to buying a house. So I think those are good tools to have as you're coaching and mentoring first time home buyers, right, into buying a house where it's just not, oh, you have a pre-approval and what could go wrong, right? Or
Yep.
you're buying a house that has a septic system or has an old roof, right? The roof's 22 years old. It might last to 30, but it might only last to 24 years. And when it leaks, you got to fix it, right? So I think it's good putting us in those shoes because it helps us relate more to our clients.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's one of those where, as much as I want to say that we are in an industry only around homes and we should only know the house side of the business, we are far more than that. We are not just financial advisors, we're more financial sounding boards. We're advisors to life and to psychology and to emotion and marketing and so many other aspects that get rolled into one thing because we just happen to be there in one of the most important and life-changing chapters of people's lives.
When people die and you have to help them sell the house, did they probate the will properly? How do you do this? Do we have all the owners of the house, right, signing off on it? What does it mean? What does it mean selling? What's your net proceeds and things like that? So I do think that there's a lot to do, a lot of psychology, right? Where do you take an offer? Do you counter the offer? There is risk in countering an offer. Today, I just countered, we're over list on something, and a new bidder comes in. And sometimes it's the bird in the hand strategy is better. Keep what you have and get it done quickly, as opposed
Mhm.
to looking for the other thing, the other offer, because then all of a sudden that offer goes away and then your first offer goes away. So, those are things that I'm working with this current seller and saying everything has risk, and so let's discuss. So that I think is the methodology that you need to have to be successful. Is to listen. You're allowed to ask for more. You're allowed to do whatever, but you have to know that there potentially could be downward side effects of doing
Right.
that. So as long
And
as it's eyes,
decisions.
yeah, they can. And it definitely happens that when you look to the other way and then all of a sudden they change their mind or they weren't so serious or their lawyer New York. So I'm in New York and Connecticut, more of my business in New York, but the lawyers are involved in both, and lawyers can basically want to have their stamp on it. And
Yep.
then it could be a detour. It could be a detour that you can work through, or it's a detour that's a roadblock and you can't. And I think so. The funny thing is, you talked about the house. I would say, in my view, me knowing about the house is the least of what I do. What architecture it is, what moldings in the house, what are that is like the window dressing, right? Because people
Yep.
see what they see. But how do we appropriately transfer title? How do we make sure that there's not an underlying risk with a foundation or a wall or something to do with the property, that there's an easement, right?
Mhm.
Those are the things that are probably more important than what the house looks like inside.
Yeah, absolutely. You're managing and working with the person and the situation more than the home.
Also then sometimes what upgrades in the house were done legally, what aren't done legally, what are the
They're
ones,
all legal. What are you talking
yeah,
about?
what does it mean to have a bathroom in the basement or and finished space when the town doesn't see that? And when you put a listing on MLS that then goes to everyone's feed, and then the town, because we have towns here that look at the Zillow feeds, and they're like, how did that, you haven't pulled a permit on this house since 1972. How is there a brand new kitchen and a brand new bathroom?
Mm,
So when you list a house, the words matter, right? Be careful in the words that you put in a listing, because that's how you're marketing the house. And if you're
absolutely.
going to market the house as got renovated and the town requires permits and you haven't done that, you've just put your seller in a pickle. And so as a talented agent, we need to know what are the rules in the specific area. And
Mhm.
there's a way that I've found that there's a way that you can market a house that didn't pull permits, but it's is different, but you have to say that and you have to be honest about it. And so you disclose to your people like, oh yeah, the basement's really, the town sees it as unfinished space, but as you can tell from the basement, there was a little bit of work that was inside. And then by doing it that way, at least it's again eyes wide open, where the new buyer knows
Mhm.
that's the way that it is. So don't and some people are like, nope, I want you to gut it, make it empty. And others are like, oh, this is a really cool basement. We would love to use it. Okay, we're okay with it.
Yeah.
So that's those are, I think, the things that a talented real estate agent are more, that's where we probably earn our keep, as opposed, because if it was really just about opening the door, with the way that technology is today, everybody would just walk with their phone, the door would open up, and then an offer, and then they would use AI to help write their offer, and that would be it. But which is exactly not what it is.
No, not
So
at all.
But what do you see right now? There's obviously a lot of turmoil politically. And I think I know, I feel like I know your answer from what we've discussed already, but like, how do you react to that? And then also, how do you react to that and go forward with clients in a weird geopolitical environment that we're in?
It's very simple. I tell them whether it's a buyer or a seller, I'm not getting married to you. I'm not here to date you. However, there's one thing that we're never going to talk about, and it's all these things that you wouldn't talk about on a first date. We're not talking about politics. We're not talking about religion. We're not talking about sexual orientation. We're not talking about anything that is polarizing because that's not what you hired me to be here for. You hired me to go through and deliver an exceptional experience as you go to buy your home or sell your home or whatever that might be. I know that not everybody thinks the same and believes the same thing, and it is not on me to go through and bring that's not why I'm here. And if somebody's looking for that, and if somebody's looking for just an echo chamber that, because I've fired clients that have gone through and have stepped over the line when it comes to what they feel is appropriate conversation or an appropriate way to treat people. And the best part about being self-employed is just because you can work with everybody doesn't mean you have to work with everybody. And they learn that very quickly. So it's setting appropriate boundaries of what I will do and what I won't do right up front when I have that initial conversation. And it's helped because I'm not finding myself 90 days down the road, all of a sudden having to be like, ooh, this is a little weird, but I just spent the last 90 days and then feeling almost compelled to go through and work with them. And I understand that just like being a Packers fan, I'm not going to make everybody happy. But if it's one of those where you have that conversation up front, life is a lot easier.
I do think it's a total balancing act for sure. We definitely need to be more like Switzerland, right? Where our role is just to be not to pick sides, not to do. I do probably have more of those conversations. I think being older allows me that, and it's also more of my nature, but it's clearly not one to judge, right? So if I do have conversations, it's probably more just about open-mindedness, but that everyone's entitled. We're still in America, and it is my view that everyone is entitled to have. That's the beauty of our countries. You're supposed to be able to say what you have your own views and be able to express them.
Yeah, and the one thing to with that, and I mentioned it earlier, is every decision has a consequence. Some are great consequences, some are negative consequences, and that's all right to have. Everybody is willing, if you want to share the way you think or the way you feel outside of for feelings outside of real estate, and you want to bring that into here, absolutely go nuts. Like I support the ability of people being able to make their feelings and opinions known. I think transparency and vulnerability is a powerful tool. Just understand that while they might feel a certain way, the other clients in the transaction, the other agents in the transaction, the lender, the title company, and even myself may not feel that same way. And it's one of those situations where bringing in polarizing topics of any capacity tends to not work out well for all parties. And it's best to just keep that separate. That is not what this is for.
I certainly agree. I guess one example would be, what do you call the primary room? Is it a master? Is it a primary? And different MLSs want to call it different ways. I generally will say primary or
Mhm.
always, but if I have a client that wants to call it a different name of a room, it's like they can do that. It's not for me to tell them they can or can't.
Correct.
Can I list it that way? No, because we have rules and regulations. We have current rules and regulations that want us to list it a certain way. Okay.
Correct.
If those rules and regulations are amended and we can change it, great. Then we have the ability. So I think if someone says they're not selling their house to purple people, and that's not a Minnesota Vikings analogy, but
Yeah,
maybe it is. Maybe it
there's
is.
the right side of the Mississippi and the wrong side. I mean the
So,
left.
so maybe purple people would be really. Why would the Green Bay Packers even care about the Minnesota Vikings? I think the Minnesota Vikings were in like like championship games or play or super and lost. So I don't know if you should really care that much about it. But
Nope.
if exactly, but if someone said no purple people, you're like, we can't say that. That's not the rule. And then again, like you said, Alex, as independent contractors, we get to pick the people that we want to work with, and hopefully um, I think our politicians should follow our lead more, that we're trying to open our tent to all people and have
Mhm.
conversations with all people. Because maybe there's not that, maybe we're like the last bastion of people talking together who feel differently. Um,
Life's a lot easier when you focus on building a bigger table rather than a higher wall.
and again, so we're not being political, but I wish our politicians would do what we're doing, right? Because then you have conversations, and when you start sitting around the table, people can have different ideas. And when you realize that when you talk to the people, you'll feel more comfortable about their view, and then you maybe convalesce around things that are not one way or another way, but more centrist. So that's my belief. But again, you talked about best. It's certainly a good place right now to focus on real estate, not pay attention to all the noise that's happening. Our noise is real estate noise, and how do we affect what the Fed's doing? And how does that affect interest? What's going on with buyers? What's going on with sellers? People want to buy, people want to sell. How do we get people where there's a meeting of the minds where we can get people to do the things that they need to do in real estate? So
Absolutely.
I found that actually good, and probably good for my psyche, because it feels like in a world that we don't have much power and can't change that much, we can try to change the way people see things in our little microcosm of real estate and move on. And maybe that's our help. We can, that's again, maybe I believe in fairy tales and unicorns.
Hey,
And
it's not a bad thing to have a positive outlook so long as that's what you believe and you seek to present and provide for others. Bring the
right.
positivity. It'll always get you further than negativity.
Yes. The bow tie group, I like that. I think it's a cute thing. And obviously I bring alcohol to closings and we do shots, actually is what I do at the club. So if my clients do like drinking, some don't. So if they don't, then I do other things. But I do like I try to get a nice bottle of bourbon
Yeah.
or tequila, or usually for a closing, to toast people. And it's really just to get everyone together and congratulate people. That's certainly, I think I like that you're wearing the bow tie at the closings. It's something that it's probably good for your social media when you have the sold sign and you're wearing the
Absolutely. When
bow
you go
tie.
on the socials, you'll see the bow tie everywhere, and soon you're going to see me with a tattoo of a bow tie as well.
You know what? That's the beauty, is that's your shtick, and you should be the best Alex that you can be. I just want to be the
Absolutely.
best Danny. I don't need to be the best agent in my town even. I just, as long as every day, and so for my analogy for you would be, as long as you see your bookends of the start of the day and
Hmm.
the end of the day, and if every day you put in a quality day's work and treated people respectfully and help them do what they need to do, you're probably going to grow your business. And so I would assume, knowing, talking 45 minutes or whatever, that your early years of not having enough clients was because you were new and it's hard to get new clients. But
Yeah.
with 300 transactions under your belt, and clearly with your wife being the CEO of the team, those are all good things. And I only see that you're going markets go up and down. And when we're in
Hmm.
the down markets, you know what? In a down market, people still need to sell, and investors will buy more, actually, because the prices will be more depressed. And so if they know that Alex Young is there to help them, my view is that you're gonna get that phone call and they're gonna want you to help them.
That's the goal. Take care of the people, and the people will take care of you.
I think that's great. So thank you, Alex, for the conversation today. Hopefully,
Absolutely.
obviously you'll be able to share it and all that, tag and share and all that. And hopefully people who are listening in get a little piece of what's going on with Alex, and if it's an agent, they'll say, oh, he has the systems in place. He bookends, he has this, he does that, all those cool things.
If you just want to learn how to tie a bow tie, I'll jump on video calls. I'll walk you through it. I'm here for anything.
So can you just share with us again your email and your Instagram and
Absolutely.
Facebook?
If anybody ever wants to find me and connect, Alex Young of the Bowtie Group, you can find me anywhere on socials. The Bowtie Group, Alex Young at kw.com. Otherwise, look in the show notes and you'll see my information there as well.
Great. Thank you, Alex. So
Absolutely.
everyone, great. Everyone, for another episode of The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker, I'm Daniel Berger. And until next week, thanks for listening in. Thanks for joining me on The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I did. If you laughed, learned something, or just had a good time, do yourself a favor and subscribe to the podcast. A big shout out to our sponsor, RE/MAX Prestige Properties, for making this all possible. Remember to leave a review if you enjoyed the show. It helps more people find us. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep exploring the adventures in your neighborhood. I'm Daniel Berger, your New York Realtor, and I'll see you in the next episode.